Can Okinawa become independent again? A full-spectrum analysis of history, international law, identity, and geopolitics. Among all geopolitical questions in East Asia, the issue of Okinawa's potential independence sits like a deep undercurrent, rarely on the surface, but always shaping the region's politics, diplomacy, and security. It isn't as visible as the Taiwan Strait or the Korean Peninsula, but it touches some of the most sensitive domains. History, sovereignty, national identity, Japan's security, and regional power competition. So, why do people still talk about Ryukyu independence today? And more importantly, could Okinawa actually become independent? To answer that, we need to examine 5 dimensions: historical continuity, international legal status, democratic legitimacy, cultural identity, real-world geopolitical constraints. This video/essay unpacks the issue from the ground up. 1. From kingdom to prefecture, Okinawa has the historical foundations of a sovereign state. If we ask whether independence is reasonable, the first step is to see whether Okinawa once functioned as a natural state. In this case, the answer is unmistakably yes. For centuries, the Ryukyu kingdom had its own monarchy, the Shou dynasties, its own capital, Shuri, an independent diplomatic system, a distinct linguistic family, Ryukyuan languages, not Japanese dialects, simultaneous official relations with China, Japan, and Southeast Asia. In other words, Okinawa was not Japan's periphery, it was a maritime kingdom. From the 14th to 19th century, it existed as a recognized political entity under East Asia's diplomatic order. This ended only in 1879, when the Meiji government sent troops into Shuri Castle and formally annexed the kingdom, a process known as the Ryukyu disposition. From a historical standpoint, independence is not an invented idea. It is, in fact, a restoration. That alone forms a strong historical justification. 2. The international law gray zone. Does Okinawa have a right to self-determination? Under international law, self-determination applies to peoples who were annexed, territories under colonial rule, communities long governed by external forces. Okinawa fits several of these categories. A former independent state annexed by a larger power. The legality of the 1879 annexation remains contested. Decades of post-war U.S. administration resembled colonial trusteeship. Distinct linguistic and cultural identity. Legally speaking, this gives Okinawa potential standing as a self-determining people. The United Nations does not currently list Okinawa as a non-self-governing territory, but many international law scholars note that Okinawa possesses the elements needed to claim self-determination. This means the issue isn't no right to independence. It's simply that Okinawa has never been formally placed into a UN process. 3. Democratic principles. If a majority of Okinawans want independence, that alone creates legitimacy. Modern democracies rest on one idea: popular will is the source of political legitimacy. If Okinawa were to hold a referendum someday and a clear majority chose independence, that outcome would have democratic weight, regardless of Japan's stance. This is how many independence movements gain traction. Scotland, Quebec, Catalonia, East Timor, South Sudan. In this sense, Okinawa could assert, "We are not Japanese, we are Ryukyuans." Identity-based self-determination is one of the strongest forces in contemporary politics. For cultural and ethnic identity, Ryukyuan culture is not a branch of Japanese culture. To determine whether a region can form a distinct nation, the key tests are: is the language independent? Is the culture distinct? Is the identity separate? Okinawa meets these criteria. Ryukyuan languages are a separate language family. A traditional music, dance, and religion differ sharply. Indigenous beliefs, Utaki worship, connect to Austronesian traditions. Even today, Okinawans instinctively distinguish the mainland from Ryukyu. This shows Okinawa has a complete cultural national identity. This is the deepest foundation for any independence claim. 5. Real-world interests. Independence could bring new strategic and economic options. Okinawa is one of Japan's poorest prefectures. a stark contrast to its strategic importance. One major reason: U.S. military bases occupy vast, economically valuable land. Independence advocates highlight 3 potential benefits. 1. Land liberation. Roughly 15% of Okinawa Island is controlled by U.S. forces. If independent, Okinawa could renegotiate or reduce this footprint. 2. Economic repositioning. With its geography, Okinawa could become a free trade hub, a tourism and logistics center, a neutral maritime hub balancing China, Japan, and the U.S., a financial/transport gateway for East Asia. 3. Cultural renaissance. Ryukyuan languages could receive full state-level protection, instead of being treated as local dialects. In short, independence is not just emotional, it has rational, material arguments behind it. 6. From in theory to in practice. The 4 barriers Okinawa must overcome. Even if history, culture, and international law give Okinawa theoretical justification, the real question becomes: what obstacles must it overcome to make independence possible? Okinawa faces 4 structural barriers: a legal, military, public opinion, geopolitical. 1. Legal barrier: Japan's constitution and territorial integrity. Japan's constitution does not allow secession. There is no legal mechanism for a region to opt out. For independence to proceed, Okinawa would need a constitutional amendment or a politically costly de facto separation. This would require strong and sustained public support, a national-level political action, a long negotiation process. This is not a one-day political gesture. It is a long-term political project. 2. Military barrier: the U.S. bases and East Asian security architecture. Okinawa is not just any Japanese prefecture. It is the linchpin of the U.S. military presence in East Asia. Independence raises unavoidable questions. Would U.S. bases remain? If reduced, how would the U.S.-Japan alliance adjust? Would Okinawa build its own defense force? How would it position itself amid China, Taiwan tensions, and the Korean Peninsula? This challenge is strategic, not symbolic. 3. Public opinion barrier: turning anti-base sentiment into national will. Current polling shows only 3% to 8% of residents support independence. Most want fewer bases, better treatment, or more autonomy, not separation. For independence to become viable, Okinawan identity must evolve from "we dislike the burden" to "we are a separate nation." That requires educational reform, strong political organization, economic self-reliance, a clear majority in a future referendum. This is a generational shift, not a policy debate. 4. Geopolitical barrier: surviving between China, Japan, and the United States. East Asia is one of the world's most complex geopolitical arenas. An independent Okinawa would need to answer: how would China respond? Would Japan ever recognize separation? Would the U.S. renegotiate its military presence? Could Okinawa remain neutral and stable? A small state between 3 major powers must have skilled diplomacy, neutral strategy, strong economic foundations, a clear international role. This is a formidable challenge for any new nation. 7. Conclusion: Okinawan independence is not impossible, but it requires crossing 4 mountains. In one sentence, Okinawa's independence is not unimaginable, but it must overcome legal, military, public opinion, and geopolitical barriers before theory can become practice. It is a massive project, historical, cultural, and strategic, and its implications go far beyond a single island. Whether Okinawa will ever become independent is uncertain. But what is certain is this: it will remain a meaningful variable in East Asia's future, in generational identity, in regional geopolitics, and in the ongoing conversation about history and sovereignty.